Okay, it's 17.
My apology for the delay.
17:07. I'd like to call this Harbor Management Commission meeting to order. And I'd like to, we do have a quorum. We have Peter online.
Yeah, Peter's on.
Okay.
We have
Hello,
Peter,
Tucker.
Mark Suso, and we have, yeah, that's it right now.
And I'd like to bring up the minutes and ask the minutes, please review the minutes. If there are any corrections that have to be made on the minutes, please bring them to our attention. Deletions, please bring them to our attention. And if I don't hear any of those, then I'd like to have the motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
First, do I have a second?
Motion approved by Mike, I guess.
Second, Puzo.
Second by Sukuso.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Thank you very much. We do have, do we have anyone from police, community policing? I don't see anyone here. So we have any correspondence? Has anyone received any correspondence? Okay, then we'll move along to the financial report. And Michael, Terry, if you'll be so kind to share financial position with our commission.
Through the month of April, you'll see a figure of $226.20 for the data line, communications line for the Harbor Cam. That figure includes March, which was not expensed, April, and they also booked May. So we have 3 months on April's report. So there won't be a fee for May on there. And so we had expenditures of $226.20 for the month. And just as a side note, we approved last meeting Jeff's bill of $4,012.50.
Yes.
So in the month of May, you're going to see that hit. But as of right now, we have year-to-date income of $6,403.79. And our balance available is $18,970.21, of which $8,495.32 is restricted for the harbor management plan, and available to the commission is $10,474.89. And again, Jeff's fee will be broken out next month.
Make a motion to accept as read.
Second.
Mark and Peter.
Yeah.
Mark Sukuso, Peter
May I
Nystrom.
have a, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, that's not it. It's on today's calendar. He was, last month's was scheduled then.
Yeah. Okay,
It's the current.
all right. So,
Want me to send him a link?
yeah, please.
Mike.
We're doing some technical strategy here.
Check his email. He should have one for today. I set it up, I think, last Thursday or whatever.
He said he had it.
Hmm?
He said already that he's had it.
Did he had it?
Yeah.
Then what's the issue?
I don't understand. Okay. Moving along. The harbor management report, that's Richard Thayer. He is not present. I did stop by Thayer's today and had a chat with him, and someone had called in regarding some boats being tied up at Lehigh, and permission from Tom Castle to tie the boats up, and I believe we have 3 or 4 boats, and the intent is that people have the boats are also watching out for the high property, kind of paying attention to what happens there. And let's see. And there's nothing else from Mr. Thayer, who is Harbor Master. Do we have any new business? Like to
There he is.
bring before the commission?
He found it.
Okay, good.
Must he's in.
No new business, okay. We're going to touch down on some old business, and they are the rolling shells. I can speak to the rolling shells. We're still trying to make connectivity between NFA and place to store the rolling shells. And that's kind of up in the air at this point. It has not been solidified. And schools and NFA is getting out, so it may take a little bit longer. The Harbor Management Plan, Chapter 6. Yes, please.
Something about the rolling shells, Tim. We've got in our draft materials that we're encouraging rolling, but we're not specific about, the properties that we can utilize. We have a plan that we want to recommend for encouraging rolling, or do we want to identify an area as a potential site for storage of the shells or access? We just want to keep it general that we're encouraging increased rolling activity.
Jeff, I think that we want to keep it general at this point because the shells are, we have a physical count of them at Mohegan Park. They're secured. They have to be waxed if they're going to be used. That without fitting for them, we still have to have someone from North Tree Academy going to assume the role of bringing young people into a program or creating a program. And we have a potential site on Hollyhock Island as to where to store them. But those three things have to come together at the same time.
So it's creating a program
It's creating a program.
with the
With North Tree Academy,
North Tree Academy.
that's a high school in the area.
Yeah, so we're not that specific yet, but if we were to say that this is a priority project to create a program, find a place to store store and maintain the rolling shells, and a place for access to the harbor. Are those the things, and we could identify that as a priority project to work on?
We could identify it like that.
Do it that way,
I
rather
think
than just encourage rolling.
I think we should keep it general right now, Jeff, because we still don't have the NFA is the nucleus of this whole thing, as well as the shells and places to store them.
So we don't,
Let's just,
we don't mention NFA, but if we're creating a program with local involvement, including youth involvement.
Park and Rec.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think you mentioned it in the floodways and New Wharf area, like development emphasizing public park and public access. So, I mean, I feel like that's like a general theme.
will you speak up a little bit, Sophia?
Yeah, I was saying in the recommendations that we did receive in chapter 6, or
Yes.
not even the abbreviated version, the illustrated version. A priority recommendation is to emphasize development that creates public park and public usage and public access. And I feel like
That was the goal for the new work that I had.
That's in chapter 6.
That was always that the new work would be for the public park type uses, and the Shipping Street and Terminal Way would be the more economic new type development. But I think it's worth saying that the priority is to pursue creation of a encouraging rowing activity and creating a program that involves local youth, identifying a place to store the shells, and identifying a safe place for access.
Okay.
But I think that's really to identify as a priority.
And I thought the water quality, and the wastewater treatment sections could be also, I don't know if it's something that you could get the community college, can they test the water? Or like a, you know what I mean?
That's another thing, we talk about, well, we're getting off, we're talking about the rowing.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Stem cells. Sophia, I'll address that in talking with NPU. There's a very elaborate program to redesign that whole part of Hollyhock Island and redesigning of it to go into the quality of the water. Well, idea is to get rid of the CFOs in our community and enlarge those tanks so that they can receive the water when we have a torrential down. And they are working on it and they're spending a good deal of money on that. So it is a work in progress.
Are they going up the bid this fall? Seem to think that they're
Yeah, I think
working
that
on.
He's chewing on the end of it.
anything else in chapter 6?
Well, there's a lot of, I was just talking about now, you talking about the rowing shows.
So we're on chapter 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna try to drill down chapter 6 with the thing, so. Yeah, move forward.
I made this just brief, and I guess this was just a presentation on priorities.
Oh,
I think
I printed one.
I emailed that to you.
Yeah.
And that's, and this focuses mostly on the New Wharf and Shipping Street area.
You know, Jeff, another group, when we talk about chapter 6, as the Shetucket River develops the fish ladders, Trout Unlimited, for sea run browns. Just a thought.
Well, that,
Yes.
Yeah.
The fish ladder or the fish elevator?
Well, they'll go, the fish migrating, will go up the ladders,
Okay.
over the dam, will spawn, and they'll go back up to sea.
It's a state program.
What's that?
It's a state program.
Well, yeah, the state with the dams now, I know with Greenville, NPU had to put that in order to get their permit. And then I think there's one or two further up.
That's one in Auburn.
Yeah, and then I think on the Quinnebog, there may be one too, I'm not sure.
we were general about that, supporting and encouraging fish ladders.
Yeah.
To restore the anadromous fishery and enhance tourism opportunities at the Greenville Dam.
Yeah, because you know, if you get those big ones, people will travel with money to come catch them. And then they'll go up to casino, double their money.
That's an example of,
Yeah, no,
it was good, and talking too much here, to drive up again after here. And Tucker and I to go down to American Wharf Marina and over Brown Park to see the areas that we're now writing about in the distance. But the question is, what level, do we want to add your idea about the fish ladders and Sophia's idea? Do we want to add more detail in this chapter 6 to what we have now? And that was my idea.
I don't know. Other than encourage, you know, in a general sense.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
sufficient.
And then if you mention it, you could fold other things.
And that's what Deanna suggested, when we were talking about the floodplain issues on the New Wharf and the Shipping Street area. We wanted, and Jason was going in a different direction. He had ideas about how to actually address the floodway constraints by doing certain
The
things.
historical,
Yes. And so the question was, do we want to keep it, say that we encourage this type of development, recognizing that it's in the floodway and maintaining compliance with the applicable FEMA standards, and leave it at that? And that would give us, as long as it's the applicable standards, we're not doing anything different. Or do we want to go into the detail that Jason was getting at when he was doing these shipping speed investment reports? And
Can you build ball fields in the flood plain?
Floodway.
Floodway.
I don't know how that.
There's no structure. Well,
No, there's a restriction.
Recreation, that's recreational.
You can't build in the floodway in a manner that increases the base flood elevation by a certain amount. So it's based on what the impact is of your development rather than, what-
What do you mean you can't, in other words, you couldn't lower?
No,
the-
You
can't.
You can have
say-
mitigating.
Say you built a building that took up space.
Mhm.
Building does. That would be less space for the floodwaters to spread out in that
Uh-huh.
particular area.
Swallow
So they
displacement.
would necessarily go up then around the building on top, because they don't spread out as much.
You can have a mitigating lagoon there. So that it can't.
I was just gonna say, can you, reduce the, lot or you deepen the lot in someplace else
Jason's idea was
to compensate?
to do that elsewhere. He identified locations upstream on the river as compensatory areas.
Right.
In other words,
The water.
lowering areas upstream on the river to create, what you lose. by
displacement.
The displacement on the shipping street on that area. So that's what we were working on when tragically Jason's no longer with us. So the thought there was that we would put some of those ideas into the harbor management plan rather than just say we're encouraging new development that's consistent with the FEMA floodway standards. You see the difference between one.
I mean, you could still say that because I think they probably want that kind of language
Yes.
and then add the
But that is, what we
Yeah.
add is the question.
question.
I like these two in companion with each other, maybe not this one, the priorities. So every year you have a set of priorities and specific that align with these general recommendations, but that like every year, so like you have some very specific cases here, like the police wall, so could that be more like a general notion in chapter 6, but every year you create a set of priorities that align with that. I don't know. It seems like, I don't know.
I think-
enough about that.
I think the plan that we're trying to develop is a plan that we can live with for the time being.
Yeah,
And the plan is not going to be, it may serve 5 or 10 years of our lifespan, but it's not going to serve forever. So that it will have to be modified. We have a,
That's why we do this process anyway. I mean, this is not a,
But
I mean, it's I would think that as time goes by, we would have actually a study group to say what other avenues we can work with to enhance taxation or our city, the goodwill of our city.
I think Sophia's point, though, it's kind of like goal oriented. We keep our eye on, like we did the Osprey project, okay, we did that. All right, what's up next, in the future?
it's manageable things,
Yeah.
I mean, I felt that I like this chapter and I don't like it because it's like every, small projects that us at the table could go and pick up trash and, like paint the gazebo. And then there's like transformational projects like the walkway, the river, the heritage walkway, things are going to take money and time and a lot of permits and funding. And then there's, things that just we can easily accomplish as a community of like volunteers or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know if that's like a conflict for anybody but me. Yeah, that we have it all in one chapter.
Well, but also in the implementation chapter, the responsibilities of the Harbor Management Commission could be to identify priorities
That align with it.
each year.
The vision.
Yeah, so what we say for the Shipping Street Terminal Way was support and encourage redevelopment according to a comprehensive plan. Okay, that's fine. Consistent with the recommendations of the Shipping Street Waterfront Redevelopment Study. which was a study a while ago when Ron was chairman. And that called for mixed commercial and other types of uses, but more than just open space uses. And consistent with the recommendations of that study, the Norwich Plan of Conservation and Development, and the site's status as a FEMA designated regulatory floodway. Support and encourage redevelopment encompassing an appropriate mix of commercial, recreational, and residential uses. Now, that's very sort of it's general. It doesn't include industrial uses that we talked about more recently. Perhaps somehow having a link with what's going on in New London and the need for construction.
Well, we have 35 acres of land down in the Shipping Street area. And we've already gone through the exercise of having it as an industrial site. Then we went to a mixed use site. And now we're talking about maybe part of that going back into an industrial site. And we have someone who likes to buy up land, and that's all well and good, but the person doesn't do an awful lot with it, so we can everybody approve that site. Or those sites.
So maybe it's worth identifying out of these areas that have been starred here, you know, what would be acceptable for this area, like zoning for that area, you know, but all encompassing, because who's gonna say no, you know? I can't see saying no to somebody who wants to buy Shipping Street and do something there. It would have to be really, really egregious usage to say no, you know, versus what's happening there right now.
I think that's still remains our task. What do we say about our vision for Shipping Street? So that when something's proposed in the near future, we can say it's
Either
consistent
align
with
to
the
the
Harbor
vision,
and the new wharf area.
Those are two untapped areas
yeah,
that kind of pockets inside the rail system that are close enough to the water that we can get some access or some waterfront opportunity from it.
mhm.
Now we just have to figure out how and what put there. Does Castle own all that? No, you know, it's this part right here from away. Oh, this is the thing we talked about right here. From away.
Everything started here is in a FEMA floodway, and right,
So
It's all floodway.
right, okay.
And that was the way around it is what Deanna, her team been planning or working on, and that is through this historical designation, so that, but that once they have identified these very old buildings, and I think 10 of them that she's looking at.
Are they
Terminal
all on
Way is
Shipping
one.
Street?
Excuse me?
They're all in this area. Shipping,
Well, there's some on Hollyhock Island.
okay,
There's some on New Wharf Road. That was a very old lumberyard that was there. That's one of the considerations. The building right across the way between Chestnut and Franklin Street. That's under consideration. All of Norwich is in some level of flood.
right.
Flood
But
problem.
is Deanna's strategy the same as Jason's strategy, or they're different?
I think they were working close together,
Right.
and Deanna has found a sum of money that she can use and has hired Regan Minor as a consultant to identify these sites to prove to FEMA that they were old buildings, like, let's say, let's use Terminal Way. It goes back to 1850, and from 1850, there's been a whole series of businesses in there.
Yeah.
And if we can identify these businesses, almost like a brownfield, phase one,
Right.
identify what was there that goes back to over 100 years, then we can, Deanna feels that she can make the case to FEMA. And that's.
And then also make the case, Jason's case also for the same site.
Yeah, in that regard, they were thinking alike.
And so by designating them as historic, it allows you to include them greater than the amount that's
They're
currently allowed.
valued at. But what about this strategy of letting the floodwater go elsewhere? Like, does it matter if you're flooding a historic property then?
That's a good point.
Say that again, please.
That's a good point.
I don't know.
The first 50% is going to go to the flood protection.
Well, I mean,
that's-
like,
that's
can
an
you-
interesting-
can you use, like,
that's an
say I
interesting-
bought this building on
That's-
Shipping Street
yeah,
right.
hypothetically, and I wanted to allow floodwaters to enter the ground floor. Like, in Stop and Shop, they have these like doors, right? That like, if the,
Like garage doors,
exactly, so if the water floods, it's gonna,
go right through the building
right.
and not tear down the building.
So if like, I'm saying I have a historic property from the 1850s and, you know, I'm gonna maintain it and I'm not gonna rebuild it, I'm not gonna make it flood proof. Like, but then you're also, you know, can you apply both tactics to the same property? Or like, does that make sense?
It does make sense. Let's take the lumberyard on Newark Road down the scrapyard area. That was an old lumberyard.
Mhm.
It's over 75 years old. That would be one of the considerations, that it's built very well-structured building. So that
Yeah.
would be one of the buildings that you could work with. And the concrete building also on the same plot of land is a well-structured building. FEMA just is, they really frown on any new building going on in that floodway.
They
And
have
this
to
is,
pay for it when it,
So,
go ahead.
but the difference in the approach, Deanna's approach, and we discussed this with her, was to be general and just say you're gonna, whatever you develop is gonna be compliant with the FEMA requirements. Or acknowledge that we know that they exist and we have to comply with them. Jason, he came up with these floodway solutions. First was leverage existing displacement. That explained that. Use floodplain historic preservation tools and then create compensatory storage where he would on the Nantucket.
On the Shetucket River, there's a very large gravel area. Right. And Jason thought that he could extract that gravel out of that area.
Yeah.
And that would then allow a space for the water to go, and they would, FEMA would think better of this if we did it that way, but I mean, there's,
But see, he was giving, maybe there's a midway point in talking about this. We say that we want to pursue rather than identify where the compensatory area should be.
because it could be in your
Yes, he's
future
done.
park, your
You know,
amphitheater.
that we say to address the FEMA, we'll look for ways to address the FEMA requirements, you know, taking into consideration opportunities for compensatory storage, stuff like that, without saying where it is.
But what it is, yeah.
an example.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mean, you want to write it for flexibility, but still, without still, you know, giving us potentially opportunities without having to.
On Route
tick 'em off, I
97
think.
in Markham, Dunkin' Donuts wanted to build a Dunkin' Donuts. It's on the riverside, and what they did, they dug a huge lagoon and they built the building. So that the water, they're not reducing the flow of the water. It's just being used, just being spread differently.
Dunkin' Donuts was my idea, you know, when I used to bring the kids to Sacred Heart. I'd get up and go to Groton, and that they were our customers. And I kept telling my boss, will you tell them to build a place up there? So they did years after they.
Should. No, there's a couple houses across the street. I'm sure they were thrilled, but
Yeah.
like derelict now.
You know,
Progress.
Sophia, this FYI in regards to Stop and Shop in Chelsea Groton,
Mhm.
they have special flood doors
Right,
in that event.
yes,
because
exactly.
That place did flood in the
Yeah.
early 80s. So 5 feet up, something.
Yeah.
I was there.
Well, that's, because there are lots of work.
You left the building though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I came back to one hell of a mess.
Oh, I bet.
I just, it seems like there are several workarounds, right, to some of these issues, like Jason Vincent's approach and also Deanna's and, you know,
Hmm.
I
engineering
think-
it, you
But I
know.
think that they're very much the same idea.
Yeah.
And that is to come up with a plan so that you can then sell it to FEMA. And it was stated that there's no other plan like this in the country, so the first that you're gonna approach FEMA with. And that's, I think, why Deanna wanted to have more than just one property. She wanted several properties to show that it was represented properly with FEMA. Okay. Anything else in chapter 6 we want?
This discussion helps, because he's got, talking about this displacement of soil, which is excavating,
Right,
compensatory storage,
Right.
which is,
opening up
yeah,
land.
and then there's utilizing historic properties in a way.
That's the historical, that's the glitch in the FEMA regulation. It says that you can use, you can go.
Yes, if it's a cultural asset, he's saying, it can get some sort of special consideration relative to the floodway. But maybe that's what it put added here for both the New Wharf and the Shipping Street area. Not just say compliant with the FEMA standards, but look for ways to address this through the state rather than where. But the vision would still be the Shipping Street area is mixed use. Right, and the New Wharf area is the open space, public venues.
It can be that.
That's always been the vision for that area.
But maybe every one of these locations should have a public use. I mean, if somebody's gonna build a big mixed development,
Yes,
high rise
yes.
there, they're gonna have to have some kind of
yes.
public access and you'd hope, right? And public use.
Talking too much.
I know,
Many-
no, I mean,
many-
maybe we should,
Many years ago, we had a meeting here with people from the city of New Haven. And they had areas that they wanted to encourage as redevelopment. And the city of New Haven's approach was for those areas, they would identify the public uses up ahead of time. And provide them, and so the developer wouldn't have to do that. And they were talking about public access along the waterfront, you know, boating access, right?
Yeah.
And that would be set, as that
you
would,
can
that
develop this,
that
but
would-
you have to.
that would be determined ahead of time. The developer then wouldn't have to, you wouldn't have to think that up when the development, because it was already thought up. Something like that. So we're talking about water, still having water dependent uses in Shipping Street and New Wharf, docking facilities, public pedestrian access areas.
Because that's a goal, I mean, that's a huge goal, I think, you know, and you wanna see, I would like to see as many people on the river as possible, you know, and not just fishing, but I don't know, I mean, you want a mixed bag also, and provide opportunities for someone like me who doesn't boat and fish to enjoy the waterfront just as much.
And are we still talking about identifying the Shipping Street area as a potential location for development of a new boat launch?
Why not? I mean,
That's what we-
are we talking about every location, or it looks like there wasn't a location identified yet. but-
No.
Yeah.
I mean, Shipping Street was only one of the places.
That was the one that we thought was, actually, Jason did that stuff. too. He looked at a number of sites.
Well, it would be ideal with this money, federal money we just got to
Yeah,
get that ramp in.
We have a ramp already.
But a goal, one of the
Yeah, but
goals
it's
I
not
think
ideal. We know that.
are the new location.
We need
The
to function
2021
with those
plan.
and fishing.
to identify a new location.
Unless we already have.
Okay, if we. Further down, there's I said, I mentioned theirs, I mentioned this, they're both doing some work on the other, they're both, I marine engineers to try to figure out what they can do on the river. And 2 applications have been submitted to DEEP, and we're just trying to get some feedback from DEEP as to how we can approach it. Reese already has a boat launch. He has a good boat launch. It's facing down the river. Just have to, he has to modify it somewhat by having electricity and water there. And has to have a permanent bathroom system. That's what it's like.
We haven't said anything about that.
No, we haven't.
So do we want to?
I think you have said identify.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, you said.
We haven't identified that particular boat launching area.
Yeah, I don't know if you. Keep it general. I mean, it's a great idea.
It's in.
Yeah.
Let's keep that general then.
Yeah.
All right.
We know we need a boat launch because of where it is now doesn't work successfully because of the various, now the COVID face masks have been lifted and people can meet and congregate at different locations. They're gonna want to meet there. They're gonna want to have the Italian
Yeah.
festival. I think
Yeah, we canceled that for this year, but that,
that will
and,
come back.
yeah, it will.
And so as soon as you have a festival there, you have to shut the boat launch down for 3 or 4 days.
Is it a bad idea or, I don't know, is it a stupid question? Is it, can you have more than one boat ramp? And is there like,
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
one,
More the merrier.
like, so like, isn't that like, is there any place you like, you couldn't imagine seeing one? I mean, could they be in any of these places technically?
Well, the idea was, I'm just going to interject something.
Yeah.
The one in Howard Brown Park was thought of being a top activity,
Mhm.
canoes and kayaks. And it would it would eliminate a lot of the safety problems that now exist.
Mhm.
Even with all the striping that the Public Works, isolating the area with lines, they still park there. It's still a problem of backing the boat up. It's usually 1 or 2 people backing the boat up, and their kids around that area. It's a hazard. So we thought about keeping that as
I mean, is it,
a hot topic.
how much does it cost to install a boat ramp? Like,
I think we've thrown around 750,000.
It,
Yeah, I mean.
the problem is more permitting than,
right,
We have an estimate that we did some years ago.
and who
I can't
provides
remember. It
the
was done by
permit?
race engineer, coastal engineering. And that was, no, that was for the shipping speed area.
Yeah.
Remember that? I'll pull that out, because we have a cost estimate for that, but you're right.
Before my time.
$700 and something thousand to $1 million.
Yeah.
In New York, when they build a new building now, in most cases, they have to have low-income housing. There's a certain percentage, so is it prohibitive to insist like, okay, you developer, Mr. Developer wants to buy Shipping Street, the whole thing, and make something great, you know, can you instead, can you say, you can do what, you can do it, it fits within the recommendations, but you have to build the boat launch, like a public, you have to provide public access.
Yes, that's a requirement under the
Yeah.
coastal management, because the properties are historically and they're on the waterfront suitable for water dependent uses. So either a public access walkway or a boat launching facility would be part of.
And-
But see, the problem is because of the floodway, you don't have the opportunity right now for substantial new development.
The floodplain and the floodway. They don't really want any building on floodways, but there is a way around it.
Yes,
Because
with an
it's in the
existing.
thing. But still, there has to be an architectural understanding what is going to go there and how it's going to go there. And usually those plans are.
Approved.
all right, we're kind of belaboring this thing.
Yeah,
We could
we
be here all night. We gotta,
No,
we gotta,
and
And
I obviously getting into this conversation a couple years too late, you know.
well, you're making some good points, so, so don't apologize.
so let's do this with this particular subject. We're not gonna get this resolved tonight. But let's
Maybe I can make some edits, but please.
get some groups together and we can discuss it. and try to-
Let me factor in the stuff that we talked about with the floodway.
Yeah.
For these two. You know, not all, not the precise or specific sites that Jason was talking about for compensation but just talk about the basic principles that we would follow. But I can do that. This,
Yeah, if you can,
Yeah,
yeah,
let's just, good idea. Let's,
do that.
keep the vision for the new wharf as it was with the open space and public outdoor activities and shipping communities, mixed use. Yeah.
Using the existing structures or building totally, like who approves that? Say
It's,
somebody does
it's
want
really,
that,
yeah, that's,
and is that like what you're looking for here? It's like a part of the approval process
you know,
or?
what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I'm hoping what we're all looking for, something, we were given a sum of money by the Port Authority with the responsibility of rewriting our harbor management commission.
Plan.
We've been kind of, frankly, I think we've been dawdling with it. We have had COVID problems. Every committee,
everybody's,
everyone's
That is
pretty
pretty
good
good
about it. But we've accepted the money, and I think we have to fulfill that obligation of coming up with a plan, presenting it to DEEP, and getting their feedback, and then coming back to the city council in Norwich and having them ratify it so that it becomes something that we can go forward with. And hopefully that. Let's pick a date. That you want it done by.
that always helps. Set a deadline.
January 1 reasonable or before?
Yeah, but we gotta, yeah, we have to make,
Midsummer?
Yeah, in the summer.
September's meeting, how's that?
Right, that's good. But what we want though, rather than, not, Port Authority is one thing, but we want a document that will serve our needs in terms of
Oh, absolutely.
what the city.
Right.
What its goals are, how can we use the plan to achieve those goals? So.
That's why we did that questionnaire. We went down to the marina, and we passed out questionnaires and got about that. We went through the whole process, and that was all from the Port Authority initiative of giving us $7,500, and city backing the other $7,500. We've done that. We understand what people are looking for. Now we just have to get the words so that we can go with
Yeah, we have, it's putting it together.
putting it together.
Fine tuning it. It's all
Yeah,
the words.
fine.
And we
September meeting
reviewed it with you.
September?
Yeah.
September meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Well,
But I think we're gonna want to discuss it at next month's meeting.
Yeah,
Not
it
this.
becomes a priority.
Yes, each meeting is with progress. All right.
okay. Then we're gonna move away from chapter 6. And let's go. And I've mentioned the fact that Thayers and Reese have put applications into DEEP. That's what they're doing. And hopefully they'll give us, DEEP will give feedback as to what they expect. I put on there the Susan Cohen versus the state of Connecticut. Do you know anything about that?
We're gonna have another meeting to discuss the approach of the harbor management commissions.
Okay.
Developing hopefully every commission will pass approve a motion such as this commission did, supporting new legislation. Or clarifying
So
legislation.
you're gonna need a letter from us.
No, we already have that. You don't, you approve the motion.
You've
Approve the motion. That's so we have to say that. And so we'll have another meeting of the commission representatives probably within the next several weeks. And we talk, other commissions have talked with their legislators.
Oh.
And I think we're getting support. But there's nothing that could have been done about that this legislative session anyway.
That's right.
It's probably.
Okay.
And the appeal is proceeding by the town of Greenwich on this business. decision.
And going to the next item, it's a mural we're trying to get painted in front of the police station. That's been kicking around now for a couple of years. And Genesee, Wyoming is not that it's tough to deal with. And I think that JP has worked, taken an early initiative to get a hold of some of the Genesee, Wyoming. and us
What are you
on-
trying to redo the one that was there or?
David Bishop has all the paint. He's offered free services. He just wants to get on the property. We have a 4-foot margin between the railroad property where the wall is. We're talking about trying to suspend a ladder up over the wall in front of the police station. And he said he can paint from the ladder. We're just trying to take this particular approach with it. But they want $105 an hour for flagmen, this end and that end. And that's turns into a whole lot of money. And you know what?
On the rail line?
On the level,
Because there's gonna be a guy there painting.
Lots of trains going there.
there's no transfer. We're not even sure we'll act well. I think we can buy it right now. Anyway. Okay, moving on. We don't have any citizens coming. There are any citizens line anywhere. The telephone.
Tucker, it's Michael Aliano. So is nothing gonna happen with painting that wall?
Nope, that's JP and Pat McLaughlin seem to be creating an angle and doing it. David Bishop is, we're gonna try to work with the police department. They have a 16-foot ladder there. We're gonna suspend the ladder over the wall, tie the ladder off at the top, and there'll be enough of a canter that he can paint the mural. This is like a 2.5-year project.
So why don't we just do it like we did it the last 2 times?
Do what, please?
Paint the wall, put a committee together, a group of us paint the wall and just bang it out, get it done.
Yeah, I agree, but that's not how the railroad sees it.
Well, we didn't ask the railroad.
Yeah, I know, but
Maybe I kind of agree with Mike on this.
What?
if we're having this
People
conversation,
walk those tracks all the time.
As long as you don't,
Michael, if we're having this conversation in public, and if
Yeah.
we didn't have the conversation, it's another issue. Now it's a public issue.
Yeah.
So now
it's recorded, so.
I've asked the city manager, John Solomon.
Thanks, Mike.
He would look at that particular,
Yeah, you know, that
Let me
big
just-
wall, the retaining
let me
wall.
just finish, please.
Yeah, just,
But in back, the police department coming down to the track.
yeah, runs along.
Oh, yeah, I see it here, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's his big thing. Like it was City of Norwich with the roads and all
Does
that.
he know who JP is? He's an engineer. I don't know. Might know.
It's right there.
Thanks, Mike.
Right.
They can't see it. Only I can.
Oh, yeah.
I spoke with the city manager yesterday. And he's going to take a ride by either by himself or with me. We're going to talk about this ladder technique and see if that has some opportunity to it. David Bishop is very much against paying $105 twice per day for flag people,
An hour.
an hour. He's very
So
much.
$210 an hour, right?
He's very much against
Public works
city.
dump truck.
Can you design something that
The
could be?
train's gonna have to stop.
Yeah.
Well,
A little bit soon.
Michael, I think that this can happen and we're working on it. I think it will happen very soon.
If we don't encroach on their property, I don't see where they got an issue. You know?
How far from the wall is the train tracks?
We have a 4-foot buffer between the wall and where the railroad property starts. So the 4-foot buffer is enough room if the ladder is tied off at the top to work from. David Bishop feels confidence in that. John Salamone feels that, we have to be careful because of the liability aspect. It's now a public issue, so we just can't have to be very cautious about how we're doing this and that safety is.
Yeah, I don't know what the issue is if we don't encroach on their property though, if we can do that, then,
They just don't get sued or something.
yeah, that's it. Well, if we don't go on their property, then
Give them an insurance certificate.
it's true.
They demanded one.
Oh, sure.
Well, that part isn't a big
So
deal.
that's,
If it becomes, if we do it as a city project, I mean, the city's got a
Comes under the
umbrella policy, right, thank you. But we got to make sure that that happens that way. So we'll probably have to pass a city council resolution or something like that. I'm serious, that's, yeah.
John Sullivan worked this out and said he would work out the
Yeah.
next couple of days, and see how it does work.
No, I mean, it's not, it's doable.
Certainly, but thanks.
Before I,
Is there anything else?
yeah, there's one other thing. We made a presentation of that painting there, that picture there of Jason Vincent for the city of Norwich and or ACDC in memoriam of Jason Vincent. And when it was passed out and was gathering, we gave it to the mayor, and he has a choice of City Hall or NCDC. And just looking at the parents, I just thought we should have another one. So I've asked Jeff if we'd create another one, and he did. And we're gonna give that one to his parents, so his parents.
Okay. I assume we have to pay for it, right?
Jeff is gonna send us. for it.
Okay.
It's that
Oh, okay.
But,
All right, that one there, okay. Good. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have an objection.
Okay, any other questions?
Are we done?
We're done.
A motion to adjourn then.
May I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? please
Aye.
say
Aye.
Thank you.
Mike is
Thank
an
you
aye, all are aye.
We got really bogged down in a lot of.
Michael, you get the paint, I'll get the brushes. I'll meet you down there tomorrow.
There, Mike. That's how it's done.
Some things
We'll
just
have a
get a lot
party.
more complicated than they need to be. I think. All right.
Well, tuck it in here.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. But